Welcome back to our end-to-end training. In this section, we're going to be looking at doing VFX, all kinds of fancy things in the Fusion page. And if you're pretty new to Fusion, don't worry, we're going to be going over the basics and taking stuff really slow as we build our effects in our shots. That said, it would not be a bad idea if you're brand new to Fusion and you've just never even used it before to check out this video, the Ultimate Beginner's Guide to Fusion here on my YouTube. We go over a lot of basic things about nodes and how all that stuff works. Definitely recommend checking this out before you get too deep into the VFX training if you haven't already. In this section of the training, we're going to be starting with a project. If we go to the project manager here down in the lower right-hand corner, click on the house and just right-click anywhere here and say import project. We're going to open for a main edit complete.drp. That's what we're looking for. I'll hit open. I already have one open, so I'll just add a little dash to the end just so it doesn't duplicate stuff. But that's the one that we want. For a main edit complete, we'll open that up and it should look something like this. If your video or audio is disconnected, make sure to go up here to the media pool, select all of your folders, right click, and select relink clips for selected bins. And navigate to your media folder under your work files and hit select folder. And that should reconnect everything and it should look beautiful. So we're going to get into the Fusion page in just a minute, but because this is an end-to-end training, this is all about the workflow from very beginning of our project to the end. There are a few things that we should do to kind of prepare for VFX stuff. One thing I'm going to do is just make a little bit more room on our timeline here just by clicking this little button right here. That just changes the height of this panel right here. And I'll hit Shift Z to zoom out so we can see everything on our timeline. And we have two major goals here. One is we need to figure out what we're going to do, what kind of VFX we need to do. And when I say VFX, I'm talking about anything that is visual that we need to add as something fancy, something special that happens. Probably one of the easiest things to understand is our gunshots, our muzzle flashes, because we're using fake guns. Believe it or not, we're not really shooting people. And so we need to add a little bit of effects here to several of our shots because it just doesn't really look that cool without those muzzle flashes. So that's going to be one thing that we add. There's also a couple little things like adding a light to this shot because we wanted this to be lit up, but we weren't able to actually physically build in a light for the props. So we're going to do that in visual effects. Then of course, the bigger kind of more obvious effects like having this guy disappear, and we want him to kind of do sort of a teleport effect here. All of that stuff is fancy things that we do in the Fusion page. And the great thing is that we don't have to go to a separate piece of software or anything. We can work right on the timeline here just by clicking on the Fusion page and opening up whatever shots that we have here in our new interface. But before we do that, we got to prep a couple things. One thing that is not talked about very often, I think, when you're talking about visual effects tutorials and things like that, is color management. Now, the way that we're doing color on this project is not necessarily a color managed workflow. That's kind of beyond the scope of probably what we're going to be talking about in this series. But we do need to take care of some of our color correction before we jump into visual effects. Now, I'm not talking about doing a full color grade on everything, but we want to have a general idea of what these colors are going to look like when we do color grade them. Because right now, everything's kind of gray, it's kind of desaturated, it's not the prettiest looking shots, right? They're kind of flat looking, kind of bleh. And if we were to do all of our visual effects on these kind of grayish looking shots, we couldn't really match our colors really well because once we went into color and made the colors prettier, added more contrast and that kind of thing, we would have to go back and adjust some of the effects and the elements and everything that we're adding. So what we're going to do to avoid having to backtrack a whole lot is just do a basic kind of correction over our whole movie here. And that sounds like a lot of work, but at this point, it's very simple. So we're going to switch over to the color page. Just going to click color at the bottom of our interface. That'll bring up our whole project here in the color page. Now, we're going to be diving into color a lot more during the color grading section. So for now, just literally follow along with me. The first thing that we're going to do up here in the nodes, you can select any of these clips, just select on one of these clips down here click on any of these thumbnails. What we're going to do is right click on this top node right here and say add node, add serial. That's the first step. This serial node is going to have an effect on it. We find that in our open effects, and here in the search, type color space. And what we want is color space transform. Take that and just drag that onto the node. And what this is going to do is basically give us a rough color correction automatically based on the type of camera that we shot with. Now, this camera is a Blackmagic Pocket 6K, and these kind of gray tones and everything that it makes, this kind of desaturated, low contrast look, is very, very specific to this kind of camera. So what we're going to do is use this effect over here to automatically change these colors from blah looking to looking okay, looking pretty good. The way we're going to do that is with this input color space and input gamma. Under input color space, instead of use timeline, we're going to scroll down to Blackmagic Pocket 4K Film Gen 4. This is very close to how our camera actually shoots, and when we click this, we see the colors brighten up a little bit. For input gamma, similar, but we're going to go down to Blackmagic Pocket 6K Film Gen 4, just like that. And now we have, this is a split shot, but we have those deeper shadows, those brighter colors, and everything looks a lot more like how we would see it in normal life. Now, this color transform is making things a little bit dark. So in our first node, let's just click back on that. We're going to boost this up a little bit. And again, if you don't understand what's happening with these nodes, we're going to get to it later in the color. For now, we do our color space transform effect in the second node. And in this first node, what we're going to do is go down to our primaries wheels down here. And I'm going to take this gamma right here on this little slider. I'm going to grab it and push it to the right a little bit. And I'm just looking up here in our viewer, and I'm boosting that up until it's just a little bit brighter, just a little bit nicer looking. And that's really all we're going to have to do for now, is that. This is going to give us a basic idea of what the colors will kind of look like once we get into doing some detailed color. So this is kind of our temporary color correction. Now we're going to apply this to every clip in the whole movie. All we have to do is just click down here in the clips, and then I'm going to hit Control A on the keyboard. Control A will select everything in our timeline from very beginning to very end. And now I'm going to right click on this clip that we've been working on and select Apply Grade. What that's going to do is apply this same color correction to everything in the whole movie. And now we'll see that everything looks a little better, a little bit brighter, a little nicer. That's just a really easy way to estimate what our colors are going to look like. And all of our shots should look pretty good. Some of them might be a little bit too dark. Some of them might be a little bit too saturated, depending on the shot. And we'll change that later. Again, this is just kind of a temporary estimation of what our colors are going to look like. This also just makes it a lot nicer to play back and look at, visually, that kind of thing. So if you're intimidated by the color page, we are all done with that right now. Again, we're going to get into it a little bit more later. Let's just go back to the edit page right here. Click on that. And now we're back. And remember, Resolve shares this timeline between all of these different pages down here. And so our color correction shows up even in our edit page. We don't need to be in the color page. So now that our colors are roughed in here, we're going to do a couple more things. We're going to play this back, and we need to make a note of everything that needs a visual effect on it. This is basically just making a to-do list for ourselves of what we need to work on in this step of the process. All right, our first visual effect shot is going to be right here. This is at 1 minute and 24 seconds. This shot needs a couple of things, and we can make a little note to ourselves by adding a marker. Let's just add a red marker here. And if you hit M on the keyboard, you can bring this up and say what needs to happen. But what's even cooler, a little more visual, is while you're on a marker, if you go here to this little drop-down button thing, you can go down to annotations. These are really helpful because you can actually draw right on the screen. So let's draw on the screen what needs to happen. One thing is that this license plate needs to go away. This needs to be replaced with something that doesn't have a black bar over it for privacy, right? We also have this Maui Grown sticker, so that needs to go away. This needs to be replaced. The other thing that we'll want to do is get rid of this tent right here. This tent shouldn't be there. That's our production tent. And again, nobody's probably going to know that, but the director wanted that gone. And this is a very difficult exercise that you can challenge yourself with. So remove the sticker and the tent and replace this license plate with a fake license plate. Let's see what else we need to do. Right here, when this falls open, we're going to add a light. So we can just draw right on the screen and that will automatically add a marker. And we'll just kind of draw that this needs a light. Right here, when he shoots her, we'll need a muzzle flash. Need a muzzle flash here. And let's try and, I'll just turn off our audio. Let's just try and get it right on that frame that we want. Like right here when he pulls that trigger, this is what we'll want. Muzzle flash. Right here, he shoots as well. Try and find the exact frame. Boom, right there. So we'll have a muzzle flash on that shot. And then we'll move over here. This next shot, we're going to add some sparks in here because let's say he's shooting at her and wants to make sure that she doesn't go to the door. So maybe the bullets graze this metal siding and that's where we have the sparks. And what we're going to do is time this up with the lighting. On some of these shots, we were smart enough to actually have real lights flash for the gunshots. So we want those to be lined up right at that same time. Let's see if there's another one. Nope, just there. So we'll add some sparks there, and let's see what else. All right. Right here when she shoots the gun, again, let's try and find the exact frame. Boom. It's going to be right there. Boom. I'm going to pick right where she starts to pull that gun back. Okay. And then right here, when he's shooting at her, again, we have these interactive lights, these real lights coming in. We want a bunch of stuff falling down. So we have a little bit of real stuff, but we want to add something falling down as well. So right here, after that flash, let's have some debris fall down here. And let's name all these. Shift up to go to previous markers. Muzzle flash. Let's keep playing through. During this shot, when he pulls the hammer back on that gun, we should see this cylinder moving here. And guess what? It's a fake gun, so it doesn't. So we're gonna have to do something about this. Let's make a note here. This needs to move this way. And move cylinder. So we'll move that. And we need to add a light here. We'll add a light here. And then after that, we have, of course, the disappear shot. So boom, we need a light here. We need a light here. And we need this disappear light and teleport effect. And let's see what else we have here. And now this very last shot, we also need a muzzle flash on, which we have our real interactive lighting here. Super great. Boom. Great. And then our very last shot is the disappear shot. So there's a few things that need to happen here. One of them is obviously she needs to disappear, but the other one is she's blinking right here, which dead people don't blink. Come on. So let's clone out that blink. And then, of course, her disappearing. That's the same kind of teleport effect as we saw before. So there we go. Here are our markers. We have all of our notes. Everything is set to go through all the visual effects of our project. This is going to be a good time.